Ladies and gents, boys and girls, welcome. Wednesday, January the 10th, 2024. Hope you are all doing well. Chris Phillips here, your host of SEC Unfiltered Live. Hope you're all doing well yet again on this hump day. Hope you're having a fantastic week, and appreciate you guys tuning in, taking time to hang out, chat, conversate with us as we rock and roll here on a Wednesday. I see Travi, Ethan K, Bruce, what's going on? Also, those you're tuning in on Facebook, you're on YouTube, you're on X, you're on Twitch, wherever you are, we say thank you all so much for your continued love and support of SEC Unfiltered Live. Guys, we got a jam-packed show for you. Lots to get into here on this Wednesday. We got our good friend Dan Thompson of Stadium and Gale. He will join the show to talk all things Florida Gators and what's going on with the Gators off season. We'll talk a little bit of Gators hoops as well, talk some men's basketball, look ahead of the 2024 season. Might even touch on some baseball, right? What Kevin O'Sullivan, his team's going to do this year. So really exciting stuff. Looking forward. We haven't talked with Dan in quite some time. I think the last time we had them on the show maybe was last summer, and I know that I went on Stadium and Gale during the football season. So really excited to talk with Dan Thompson of Stadium and Gale. That conversation, guys, happening around 1:15 or so. In the meantime, though, we'll talk all things 2024 SEC head coaching rankings. My way too early head coaching rankings going into the 2024 football season. Sure, not to piss anybody off as we talk about which coaches saw their stock rise, which coaches saw their stock plummet in the 2023 season. Guys, we'll talk that. Also, we'll dive into all things SEC basketball. Who's the fourth best team in the SEC, right? I think you can look at a couple teams that have separated themselves, right? As we get deeper into SEC play, you're able to start putting these teams kind of in tiers, if you will. Who is that fourth best team, though, right now? We'll talk about the action that took place last night, and we'll look ahead to the midweek action tonight. 3 games that are on the docket for tonight. And, guys, also, we touched on this briefly yesterday with our good friend Jake Crane of Crane and Company. But I want to talk about Hugh Freeze taking over the play calling, talk about that more in depth, and just what that means for Auburn, guys. I locked in my 2024 record predictions, the early record predictions, if you will. And there's a reason why. One of the reasons why I think Auburn could be an 8 or maybe even 9-win team, overachieving in 2024, is because of this move that Hugh Freeze is making. Also, guys, in the show, we'll take your questions, your comments, your voicemails. 843-790-3377. I want you to be a part of the show, guys. Call that number, text that number, whatever you like. Of course, you're on Facebook. You're on X, you're on YouTube, you're on Twitch. We want you to be a part of the show. Leave us your questions, your comments, and your voicemails. And again, guys, we will get to those end of show, final 30 minutes or so of the show. Guys, you're on YouTube. Be sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that bell icon so you get notifications of when we go live, when we drop new video content as well. We are growing consistently on a daily basis on YouTube. I can't say thank you enough to all of you guys. If there's some of you out there that are new to the live show, hey, we go live every single day, noon to 2 p.m. Eastern, talking an array of different topics. We have daily guests on the show, and of course, we take your questions, comments, and voicemails. We interact with you guys on a daily basis. So again, hit that subscribe button on YouTube, guys. If you want to support the show, support the business, support the channel, support everything we do, you can do so in a various number of ways on YouTube. Super chat, super stickers. They now have super thanks, by the way, which you can go in, leave a comment, leave a tip, or what have you in a comment, right? So it doesn't have to be live show oriented necessarily. And if you do that, guys, we'll shout you out in the show, give you some love. And again, thank you all so much, those who do that and show love and support for SEC Unfiltered. Also, guys, of course, the podcast, content bleeding out of the eyeballs on a day in, day out basis. Podcast drops daily. Of course, it can be found at SEC Unfiltered, but we're on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast. You can check out SEC Unfiltered there. Rate the show and subscribe to the show. Leave us 5 stars. Helps other folks find the show if and when they are looking for it. And of course, guys, we're across social media, X, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Wherever you get your content, you can find us, content bleeding out of the eyeballs. And guys, finally, we have an SEC Unfiltered Discord. We're trying to beef up the Discord. get some more SEC representation in there, SEC fan representation, if you will. No matter who you're a fan of, guys, it's a great opportunity and a great place and a great community for all SEC fans to come together and talk shop, talk ball, and the beauty's in the banter, as we say, to have the banter. It's a great place to have that banter and chop it up and have some fun. So again, guys, thank you all so much. I appreciate each and every single one of you. Like I mentioned, we are going to get into everything that happened on the Hardwood last night. Alabama just gave South Carolina an absolute beating. Kentucky finds a way to get it done. Not a lot of drama, right? All of the favorites won their games last night. I think tonight could provide a lot more in regard to some home underdogs, right, that I think could possibly pull some upsets, some really, really fun matchups tonight. And again, we'll get into that later in the show. In the meantime, guys, as I mentioned before, it is way too early season. Whether it be way too early record predictions, way too early top 25s, way too early college football playoff projections. And in the spirit of that, I thought we'd take it a little bit of a different direction, right? One of our most highly criticized but most fun pieces that we did last summer was head coaching rankings, head coach rankings, ranking all of the head coaches in the SEC going into the 2023 season. So I figured with that in mind, why not do it right now for 2024? Ladies and gentlemen, our way too early head coaching rankings entering the 2024 season. And of course, guys, do not forget, this includes Texas and Oklahoma, which makes it even more exciting. Our way too early head coach rankings will go all the way from number 16 to number 1. So without further ado, guys, let's go ahead and get this thing rolling. At number 16, and sort of by default, guys, this is not an indication of how I think his tenure is going to play out or what he's going to do in Starkville. But at number 16, I've got Jeff Lebby. And the reason is, guys, he's never been a head coach before, right? When you've never been a head coach, it's really hard to put a guy like that ahead of anybody else in the SEC or anybody else in whatever conference that is established, that's had success before, what have you. You know, I think Jeff Lebby, obviously Mississippi State hires him over from Oklahoma, had done great work for them, especially on the offensive side of the football. I think Jeff Lebby, number one, I think he's going to be a massive upgrade over Zach Arnett, with all due respect to Arnett and what he was trying to do. It just didn't work out right after the passing of the late, great Mike Leach. Because of no experience, because there's just simply no resume to look at outside of what he's done as a coordinator, you got to put Jeff Lebby number 16. But I am excited to see. You know, I think it's going to be, as you heard yesterday in our way too early record projections for 2024, I think it could be a tough year one, right? There's new systems that'll be instilled. There's new terminology, right? You got to get the players that fit your scheme, fit your system. But I think in the long haul, I think Jeff Lebby could be a good answer in Starkville. I think he could get Mississippi State back to a fun style of football and get the Bulldogs back to at least respectability, making a bowl game consistently, getting back to that 7 to 8 win per year benchmark, if you will, that was once established for the Bulldogs. So number 16, I've got Jeff Lebby. At number 15, I've got Vanderbilt head coach Clark Lee. Guys, it was a tough year for Clark Lee. And you're going to notice, by the way, in these way too early head coach rankings, there are some guys that last summer I had ranked much higher. There are some guys last summer that I had ranked much lower. That's because, obviously, guys, the 2023 season, there's some guys that their stock went up, and there's some guys that their stock went down. Because, listen, you're only as good as your last season. You're only as good as your last game. It's a what have you done for me lately business. And anybody in the business, whether it be on a coaching staff or around a program or what have you, anybody will tell you that. So at number 15, I've got Clark Lee. And listen, he's in a really, really difficult situation. There's a lot of problems. You talk to Vandy folks, guys. There's a lot of problems with Vanderbilt football outside of just what Clark Lee has in his control. You know, Vanderbilt is still light years behind when it comes to NIL. They're still light years behind when it comes to competing in that space and realistically being able to go out and get some top players in the transfer portal, and be competitive from an NIL standpoint. Guys, at this point, if you don't have the NIL backing, you're not going to pull in top talent. Now, I'm still a big fan of Clark Lee. I think Clark Lee, who's obviously a Vanderbilt guy, he cut his teeth at Vandy. He played at Vandy. I think he's a great fit for Vanderbilt football. But how much longer will they turn the other cheek to lack of success on the field? How long will his leash be at Vanderbilt after a really, really difficult season in 2023? And guys, you look at 2024, you look at what they've lost in the portal. I don't know that I see it getting much better, right? And so, you look at that Vandy team last year, too. It felt like they kind of quit down the stretch, right? And it was a team that I think we were all really high on in the sense of for Vanderbilt football, you thought maybe this team could get back to 5 wins, right? Went 5-7 in 2022. They were labeled as, that's the easiest over-under bet in college football, the over 3.5 for Vandy. They're going to hit that just in non-conference play. And things obviously went off the rails with the loss early in the season to UNLV, and then things were just really, really ugly in SEC play. So Clark Lee at number 15, I'm holding out hope. I want Clark Lee to work out in Nashville. But again, to be fair, there's a lot outside of his control that is working against him. But things have got to get shored up, guys, from the coaching standpoint, because you go look at that coaching staff. Our good friend Dave Bartu over at College Ball Matrix, I think he told me that's one of the worst staffs in college football, right? So that's something he's got to get shored up. We'll see if Clark Lee can turn it around. But number 15, Vanderbilt head coach Clark Lee. At number 14, I've got Billy Napier of the Florida Gators, one of the hottest seats in the SEC going into the 2024 football season, guys. And I don't know how Billy Napier survives it. You hate to pronounce someone dead before they go through the ringer, if you will. But, guys, you look at that 2024 schedule. You look at that slate. And you look at the team they've got. Yes, they have Graham Mertz coming back. But here's one of the biggest reasons why Billy Napier is down here at 14, guys. And I know Gator fans, you're out there. You would agree with this. The most disturbing thing about Florida football in 2023 was this. The year one mistakes in year two. Just the dumb things. Florida was a stupid football team in 2023, guys. There's no other way to put it. They were a dumb football team, right? From multiple guys wearing the same number on special teams to just careless blunders, self-inflicted wounds, self-inflicted errors. Guys, Florida did everything poorly that a not very good football team does. Everything they did. It was just indicating of a stupid football team. And I don't know how Billy Napier gets it turned around. He just hired an executive head coach for the defense. He's got 2 offensive line coaches. He's got no offensive coordinator. And he's got a gauntlet of a schedule that features 11 Power 5 opponents on it. Gainesville is not a place that you're going to get patience. It's just not going to happen, guys. And I don't even blame Florida fans for having high expectations and having high standards, because there's no excuse for Florida football to not be a contender year in and year out. Billy Napier has got to take major strides in year 3, guys. I don't know exactly what the record has to be, but if there isn't significant progress shown after a 5-7 season in year 2, guys, I do not think we're talking about Billy Napier as Gators head coach this time next year. At number 13, and again, this is a man, guys, his stock took a major hit. And I mean a major hit because of the struggles last season. Number 13, Sam Pittman of the Arkansas Razorbacks. Just an inexcusable year, guys. It was an inexcusable year in 2023 and a disaster nightmare season. 4-8 for the Arkansas Razorbacks, guys. I mean, even if you had conservative expectations, even if you question, okay, well, Dan Enos, I don't know if this is really going to work at OC. They still had KJ Jefferson. They still had Rocket Sanders. They still had a defense that I thought was going to take a step forward and, still had talented football players, right? And Sam Pittman is a guy, I guess you can call him a victim of his early success, because he is a guy that, year one takes over. That program was in complete disarray. And just winning a SEC game, a single SEC game, was a big deal. Year two, they go win 9 games. They win the Outback Bowl, and it was like, wow, Sam Pittman's way ahead of schedule. Well, year 3, they have a lackluster year, fall short of expectations. It wasn't necessarily a year which they fell off the cliff, but they fell short of very high expectations. And then this last year, guys, you can't go 4-8. You just simply put, cannot go 4-8. And so right up there by Billy Napier, arguably the hottest seat in the SEC is Sam Pittman. Again, what does the record have to be? Is 6-6 good enough to keep Sam Pittman around in Fayetteville? Does he have to go 7-5? Does he have to go 8-4? What does the record? What's the minimum expectation? And when your AD is coming out late in the season and letting everyone know, hey, guys, he's coming back next year. Well, that's the indication. You're on a 1-year plan. And if you don't win, you're out. So, Sam Pittman, a guy, guys, I think he's a great fit for Arkansas. I think he's a guy that he was a personality hire. And I think Sam Pittman proved why it's so important to, if you're a personality hire, play up to that. Be liked, right? Because I think that's one of the reasons he probably didn't get canned this past year, is because everybody looks at that and says, man, he's just so good for Arkansas. He's such a good fit for Arkansas. But at some point, guys, it doesn't matter how good of a fit you are. It doesn't matter how much of a personality hire you were and how much you fit that bill and, how you fit the culture and you talk the lingo and you walk the walk. None of that matters if you don't win. No coach is immune to the effects of losing. It doesn't matter how great of a fit you are or how beloved you were or even are by the fan base. At number 12, I've got Mike Elko of Texas A&M. Now, this is probably going to be a lot lower than some will have him. But simply put, guys, the reason I do, just unproven in the SEC. Mike Elko did great work at Duke, right? Did great work at Duke. And if Riley Leonard did not get hurt this past season, Duke's probably a 9 or maybe 10-win football team, right? Beat Clemson out of the gate last year. Like, they were poised for a great season. And if you can win at Duke, you should be able to win at Texas A&M. I want to see Mike Elko prove it, though, before I'm saying he's a top half of the league coach, or we don't know that. You know what I mean? Like, we're projecting it. I think Mike Elko, he's a Texas A&M guy, right? He was at A&M before Duke. I think the hire makes a lot of sense. But is he a home run hire? Is this a no-brainer? It's going to work, and he's going to meet the standards, especially that Texas A&M has? I don't know. I don't know. I think there's things that point to yes, but we just simply don't know. So at number 12, guys, again, it kind of goes back to the Jeff Lebby thing where it's like Mike Elko's been a head coach. So you don't have that knock on him, but he has no idea what he's doing, but he hasn't been a head coach in the SEC. He's been a coach in the SEC, hadn't been a head coach in the SEC, though. So I'm going conservative early with Mike Elko. Love the upside, love the fit. Just need to see it play out on the field. At number 11, guys, I've got Mark Stoops of Kentucky. This was a head coach that his stock took a plummet for sure. It took a hit at least. I still like Mark Stoops at Kentucky, and there's a reason Texas A&M seriously wanted him. If not for pushback, I think probably Mark Stoops ends up in College Station. But they underachieved last year, no question. I mean, they underachieved. What is going on with the offense at Kentucky? What's going on with the offensive line at Kentucky? Why lately is the physicality that we became so accustomed to seeing in Lexington? Where is it gone, right? And I know Liam Cohen was first-year OC, right, coming back, although it didn't feel like first year, but it was his first year back. And, Devin Leary fell well short of expectations. We never saw Barion Brown and Dane Key and that offense really click. Ray Davis had a solid year, right? You had the big win over Florida at home where you just blew out the Gators. But, I mean, guys, outside of that, you got blown out by Georgia. You lost to South Carolina in a really ugly game down the stretch, right? Offense couldn't do anything against the Gamecocks defense. You did beat Louisville, so that was a positive, right? When you beat the arch rival, but you fumbled away the game against Clemson in the bowl game. So I just, it wasn't a bad year for Kentucky necessarily, but I think Mark Stoops, he's a great coach for Kentucky. Is he an elite level SEC head coach? I don't think so. I don't think so. Now, do I think Mark Stoops deserves a shot at a bigger job? I think so, yeah, because again, this is Kentucky football. Like, you have to really, and I'm not trying to downplay Kentucky football. I'm not trying to speak ill of Kentucky football. But guys, Kentucky's a basketball school. Like, can we just call it for what it is? It is. It is, right? It's probably the only school in the SEC that values its basketball team and basketball program over football. And that's okay. Like, there's nothing wrong with that, but it is the truth. So for the role that Kentucky football plays in that athletic department, for the role that it plays in the SEC, like, Kentucky winning 8 games a year is pretty good. So, when you've got Kentucky football, I'll say this, when you've got Kentucky football to a point where 7-5 is a bad year, that really speaks to what Mark Stoops has done. But with that being said, right, the bar has been risen, and last year fell short of expectations, especially when you looked at who they had coming back. So, we'll see. They did a lot of work in the portal. Brock Vandegrift at quarterback. They added Jamar Dumas-Johnson at linebacker position, right? They've shored up some positions in the portal, no doubt. We'll see if they're able to bounce back from a quote-unquote disappointing 7-win season in 2023. At number 10, I've got Shane Beamer of the South Carolina Gamecocks. Again, we talk about stock up, stock down. I'm not sure, guys, there was a coach in the SEC whose stock took a harder hit than Shane Beamer. And there are multiple reasons for that, right? And I think it's because, too, the stock had risen to such a place after 2022, after the way the Gamecocks ended that 2022 season where they beat Tennessee, they beat Clemson. I mean, we were talking about South Carolina potentially being a dark horse in the SEC East and matching their 8-game win total and maybe winning 9 games, maybe being that, that Tennessee, that what they were in 2022, maybe South Carolina being the 2023 version of that. And from start to finish, it was a nightmare for South Carolina fans. From start to finish, that was a season that fell short of expectations. I mean, when your best win of your season is against a Kentucky team that underachieved in a game that was a snooze fest, would have put you to sleep. You had to ride the defense to win the football game. When that's your signature win of the season, and then outside of that, you beat a Mississippi State team that fired its head coach, and then you beat Furman, you beat who else did you beat? Jacksonville State on a pick 6 to seal a game. Very easily could have lost that game, then beat Vanderbilt, right? So, I mean, it was a season that I think really, Shane Beamer's stock was affected. Let's call it for what it is. Also, not just on the field, but off the field. I mean, Shane Beamer somehow, some way had a knack for making national headlines, not regional headlines, not conference-wide headlines, national headlines on a week-in, week-out basis because of these tirades and these outbursts and kicking a water cooler. And I mean, just one thing after another after another. I will be very interested to see the response from Shane Beamer and his South Carolina football program in 2024. Because again, I don't think there was a coach whose stock plummeted more than Shane Beamer's. Not just because of what happened on the field, but because of the antics, the tirade, not acting as a CEO of the program, which is what he was hired to do, acting out of emotion rather than logic. You combine all those things, guys, it was a nightmarish 2023 for Shane Beamer, and for that reason, he is 10th on our way too early head coach rankings entering the 2024 season. At number 9, guys, I've got Brent Venables of the Oklahoma Sooners. I think Brent Venables has set up Oklahoma well, guys, to come into the 2024 season and enter the SEC, a 10-win season for the Sooners after a really tough year one. And I think Brent Venables, the guys, is doing things necessary to put Oklahoma in the best possible position. Now, he's still very early on in his head coaching tenure. But again, to go from year 1 to year 2, guys, from what it was a 6 or 7 win season, the defense was historically bad, to go from that to winning 10 games and knocking off your arch rival Texas, hey, that's a pretty solid year 2 in my opinion. So I think Brent Venables, I think he's a coach, despite the bowl game loss to Arizona, I think he's a coach where his stock is trending up. I think Brent Venables is going to establish himself as one of the better coaches in the SEC. Again, I've got him 9th right now because he's still so early on in his coaching tenure. But I think Brent Venables, if I had to buy stock one way or another, I would buy it up on Venables. I like what he's doing at Oklahoma. Now, again, you guys heard my way too early predictions yesterday. That does not mean Oklahoma may not suffer a tough year one in the SEC, because this is going to be a brand new ball game for the Sooners. But I do like Brent Venables a lot as a head coach. I'll be interested to see what he does as a defensive coordinator spot, getting rid of Ted Roof. But I think they're in good hands, and has to replace Jeff Lebby as well. So there's going to be some change. There's going to be some transition, but I like Brent Venables at OU at number 9. At number 8, I've got Hugh Freeze of the Auburn Tigers. Now, it was a topsy-turvy year one, guys. It was a topsy-turvy year one. It was all over the place, right? You had the highs of competing with Alabama and with Georgia, and you had the lows of losing to New Mexico State and 4th and 31. And I mean, getting to a bowl game, guys, I thought in year one of Hugh Freeze, I thought that was a successful season. I really did. Going all the way back to SEC Media Days last year, when I heard Hugh Freeze say, hey, be patient with us, have patience, that told me that, hey, you know what? Hugh Freeze is telling his fan base, we like what we have, but we're not there yet. We're not there yet. You look at the way they recruited as well, guys, the 4th-ranked class in the SEC, one of the top classes in all of college football. They're doing work in the transfer portal as well. And then Hugh Freeze taking over the play calling, man. I am so excited to see that. I don't know why this wasn't the case in the jump. Out with Philip Montgomery, who destroyed that Auburn offense. I think they're going to make a major leap forward to the offensive side. And defensively, guys, they do have to replace Ron Roberts, but Auburn is loaded, I think, on the defensive side of the football in regards to talent. And then, guys, you just look at Hugh Freeze's track record. He just wins. He wins, man. I mean, the reason you can look at this past season, yes, they lost to New Mexico State. Things like that can happen, guys. Look all the way back at Nick Saban's first year when they lost to UL Monroe. I'm not saying that Hugh Freeze and Auburn are going to be that, but those kinds of things can happen when you're changing a culture and when you're instilling new things and you take over. It's kind of topsy-turvy in year one. But you look at those games against Georgia, you look at those games, that game against Alabama, guys, the whole reason Auburn is in those games is because of what Hugh Freeze is a head coach. So I've got him middle of the pack, but I tell you guys, Hugh Freeze and the Auburn Tigers, I think it'll be sooner rather than later that he's got them up near the top of the SEC. I've got Hugh Freeze right now going into 2024 at number 8. At number 7, I've got Josh Heupel of the Tennessee Volunteers, and this might be low. This might be low in some people's minds, and I get that. Guys, you really have to take into account the coaching talent that is in the Southeastern Conference. Like when you look at the guys that are in the SEC, it's a damn impressive list, okay? So Josh Heupel, he's one of the best coaches, I think, one of the best offensive minds in college football. He's the 7th best coach in the SEC. When you got to rank them, guys, somebody's got to be 7th. It's just tough. There's a lot of really good coaches. I like Josh Heupel a lot. I thought a year 3 for Tennessee under his leadership. I think Tennessee football, guys, is in a great place. I really do. You take over in year 1, you win 7 games. Guys, he took over a disaster. He took over a disaster. Tennessee football hadn't won anything of even remote significance in over a decade. They had 40 guys into the portal when he got there. Take over, you win 7 games. Then you have that 11-win season, right? That 11-win season in 2022 in which you win the Orange Bowl, right? Then this past year, I think Tennessee met expectations. I really do. You win 9 games. You go 8-4 regular season. There was the expected drop-off from Hendon Hooker to Joe Milton. Now, why did Nico not play anymore? I don't know, guys. Maybe he just wasn't away. Let's give full credit. Iowa was one of the best defenses in all of college football entering that game. You finish the season with 9 wins. I mean, I think if you're establishing a floor of 8 wins in a regular season at Tennessee, guys, there's not a Vol fan right now, if you're being honest with yourself, starting out in the Josh Heupel era, after what you went through for 15 plus years, there's not a Vol fan right now that would not sign up for an 8-win floor. There's not a Vol fan right now that would not sign up for that. So I think Tennessee football's in great hands with Josh Heupel. I think we're going to see that even more in 2024 with Nico taking over at quarterback, Brew McCoy and Squirrel White back at wide receiver. I think that offense is going to not miss a beat. I think the defense is improving. I don't think that's talked about enough how good that front 7 was in 2023. Josh Heupel, number 7 on my list, but make no mistake, one of the best coaches in the SEC. At number 6, you talk about a stock riser from 2023 to now. At number 6, guys, and again, hard to believe after this past season, there's 5 guys ahead of him, but it speaks to the depth of the league. I've got Eli Drinkwitz of the Missouri Tigers. What a turnaround. What an ascension for a guy that this time last year, guys, Missouri fans were ready to cut loose. Missouri fans were truly ready to at least entertain the conversation of, you know what? Maybe this guy ain't it. Maybe we should go a different direction. Is he really cut out for this in the SEC? I mean, I compared Eli Drinkwitz, guys. I said he was the Jeff Fisher of college football. Goes 500 every year and somehow gets extensions and keeps his job, and that's all she wrote. So Eli Drinkwitz, though, what he did this past season, leading Mizzou to an 11-win campaign, including that Cotton Bowl win over Ohio State, winning SEC head coach of the year. Well-deserved, by the way. You cannot say enough good things about what Eli Drinkwitz has done with that Missouri football program, guys. A Missouri football program that, and I think Eli Drinkwitz, one of the reasons he's such a good fit there, guys, MIZ's got this chip on their shoulder, right? And I think Eli Drinkwitz does as well because, you know, Missouri's just disrespected at every turn. Shouldn't be in the SEC. They're this, they're that. I mean, you have programs, guys, that have done less in the SEC in their entire history than Missouri has done in, what, a decade of being in the league, that still find ways to throw shade at Mizzou. Still find ways. So Missouri is arguably the most disrespected team in the SEC. And I think Eli Drinkwitz, I think he embraces that. I think he is a great fit for that program. Again, that chip on the shoulder mentality and what he did this past year, man, with Brady Cook, Luther Burden, Theo Weiss, Cody Schrader at running back, that defense. I mean, their only losses, guys, were to LSU and Georgia in Athens. Only 2 losses for Mizzou. So Eli Drinkwitz in the span of a year has turned Mizzou from, you know, a bottom of the pack, 6-win SEC team, no big deal, to we're realistically going to be talking about Mizzou being a college football playoff contender in 2024. And it all starts with the head man, Eli Drinkwitz, number 6 in our rankings. At number 5, I got Brian Kelly of LSU. A year 2 that certainly, guys, fell short of expectations. But you do win 10 games, right? You go 9-3 in the regular season. The fact that the defense under Matt House got to the point that it did is inexcusable. I mean, guys, the bowl game exemplified how special Jaden Daniels was, how valuable he was to LSU football. They don't have Jalen Daniels, guys. They probably don't win 7 games. I mean, really, truly. That's how bad the defense was and how much Jaden Daniels bailed them out, not just with his arm, but with his legs as well, running the football. I think things are still on course for the Brian Kelly era at LSU. Obviously, the expectations, guys, are to compete for a college football playoff spot, win the SEC, win national championships, right? We know the expectations, what they are in Baton Rouge. You know, a 9-win regular season, 10 wins with the bowl game. I don't think it was enough to really drop Brian Kelly down, if you will. Wasn't going to put him below, obviously, Eli Drinkwitz. He beat Eli Drinkwitz. And you look at LSU and who they lost to Ole Miss, Alabama, and Florida State. They only lost 2 SEC games, right? So, I mean, I'm still very high on Brian Kelly. I think the move hiring Blake Baker away from Missouri was huge. I think that LSU defense, guys, because they got dudes. They got dudes everywhere. When it's not panning out on the defensive side at LSU, you know it's not a talent issue. It's a X's and O's. It's a coach issue. So I think making that move, kudos to Brian Kelly for doing so. I think you can expect year in, year out, they're going to be solid offensively. I'm curious what the drop-off from Jaden Daniels to Garrett Nussmeier is going to be. I know Nussmeier, how he looked in the bowl game. I know he's capable, but guys, we're talking about the Heisman Trophy winner. By default, there's going to be some sort of dropout. The question is, how much? So, Brian Kelly, number 5, guys, still really high on him in the Bayou Bengals. Number 5 on our list. At number 4, guys, and maybe the hottest commodity in the SEC, believe it or not, going in 2024, I got Lane Kiffin, the Ole Miss Rebels, man. the job that Lane Kiffin, we really have to appreciate what he's done at Ole Miss, guys, because this is not, think about it. Ole Miss just won 11 games for the first time in program history. Like, this very well may be the golden era of Ole Miss football. Like, it's never been better to be an Ole Miss fan than it is right now, right? And then you look at what they've done in the transfer portal. I mean, they're grabbing SEC talent left and right, Power 5 talent left and right, dude after dude after dude after dude after dude, man. They're pushing the chips all in on a college football playoff appearance in 2024. And, Lane Kiffin, he's a quirky dude, man. He works in mysterious ways, but he knows how to get the job done. And that's all that matters in the SEC, folks. Ole Miss has become a national brand, and a brand that folks are looking at, that when they're making their way too early, college football playoff, top 12s, whatever, or when they're talking about it this summer, Ole Miss is going to be there. It's because of Lane Kiffin. What he's done with that Rebels football program is nothing short of incredible. So, Lane Kiffin, number 4 in our way too early head coach rankings. Number 3, guys, I've got Steve Sarkisian of the Texas Longhorns. Is Texas back? I think they are. I think they're back to being a top contender in college football and being a team that, again, when we talk about the 12-team college football playoff, I think Texas is one of those that you say, okay, they're a shoe-in, right? Just went to the college football playoff, obviously lost to the Washington Huskies, who made an appearance in the national title game. I think despite that, guys, despite losing to Oklahoma in the regular season, right, they were Big 12 champions. I know we're all curious and intrigued to see, okay, what's the transition like to the big bad SEC? I think with Quinn Ewers more than likely returning, you got Arch Manning waiting in the wings. They're still going to be loaded, guys, across the board when it comes to talent. And again, I think Sark is the reason, guys. You saw Sark's coaching prowess early in 2023 when they went to Alabama. And I mean, dude, Sarkisian ran circles around Kevin Steele. He ran circles around Nick Saban with the offensive game planning. So I think because of that, guys, you look at him, I think he's not only one of the top coaches in the SEC, he's one of the top coaches in the sport at this point. Number 3, Steve Sarkisian of the Texas Longhorns. At number 2, now this is where it gets fun, right? Because last summer, if you will, when I did head coaching rankings going into the 2023 season, well, after back-to-back national championships, I had Kirby Smart at number 1, Nick Saban number 2, right? And so the question for me when I made these rankings was, am I going to stick with that? Am I going to stick with that? Basically, this is a conversation of who's the best head coach in college football right now and who's the second best. Because that's what we're talking about. That's what we're breaking down right now. Who's the best coach and who's the second best coach? At number 2, I do have Kirby Smart of the Georgia Bulldogs. The reason is, guys, if you're asking me long-term who am I buying stock in, well, I'm going Kirby Smart. I think he's got obviously more gas in the tank. And, listen, they've gone, 30-1 in their last 31 games. One bad Saturday, like I talked about a couple days ago, one bad Saturday cost Georgia the opportunity to win 3 straight national titles, right? But you have to put respect on the GOAT, and that's something I didn't do last year, guys. That's something I didn't do. I just simply put, until Georgia can show more consistency in going up against and beating Alabama, that's just something they have not done, right? Until they can do that, I got to put Kirby Smart too, man. I mean, obviously, Georgia's a monster. Georgia's a beast. Everything Kirby Smart is doing, everything he touches is gold. They got more talent than arguably anybody in college football. All the buttons Kirby Smart pushes are the right buttons. He hires Mike Bobo. They got one of the best offenses in college football. He's got Glenn Schumann at DC. They're the best defense in college football. Will Muschamp is his co-defensive coordinator. Hey, doing great things for them. I mean, it's just one thing after another. There aren't many chinks in the armor over at Georgia. You know what I mean? And then you talk about what he does for his football team. There's nobody better in college football at motivating their football team. You saw this, guys, in the Orange Bowl, right? Because one team was unmotivated. The other was there to kick some ass, and that was the Georgia Bulldogs. Georgia had every opportunity to do what Florida State did and say, you know what? If we didn't win the national title this year, our season was a bust anyways. I'm opting out. I don't care. I don't want to play. What's the point? Georgia's team had every opportunity to do that. You know why they didn't? Because they've got a guy in Kirby Smart who's created a culture there, who's built a program where guys want to give their all for the G on the helmet. Guys want to give their all for Georgia. Guys want to build. They care about the future of the program versus Florida State, who was a team of mercenaries. I'm not saying that's the wrong way to do it. It's just a different way to do it. And you saw the results play out on the field. So Kirby Smart, one of the best in the business, guys. I've got him at number 2. And at number 1, again, I just have to simply put respect on the GOAT's name at number 1. I've got Nick Saban. And the reason is, guys, again, I think 2023 was Saban's best coaching job in his entire coaching career, taking that football team that had a number of holes that we are just simply put not used to seeing from an Alabama football team and taking them all the way to the college football playoff. And then, guys, simply Nick Saban beat Kirby Smart head-to-head with that team. I mean, I learned my lesson the hard way, guys. I learned my lesson the hard way last summer. I did. I learned my lesson the hard way. I picked Bama to go 9-3. I picked Kirby Smart number 1, Nick Saban number 2. And all the GOAT did was find a way to make me and you and many of us out there look foolish. So put respect on the greatest of all times. Name Nick Saban until we see otherwise, until we truly see the program start down a demise. He simply put, guys, the best in college football and the greatest of all time to ever do it. Guys, we're going to jump into a quick break. On the other side, we're going to move the conversation from football to basketball. Who's the 4th best team in the SEC? We'll also break down last night's action, look ahead to tonight, all that, guys, and much more on the other side of this break. You're tuned in to SEC Unfiltered Live.
Yo, you think Dallas' Power 4 gonna drop 30 tomorrow?
Boy, you tripping.
Did you see his mom made a post about going to the game?
What? Hold up. His mama gonna be there?
He's been averaging like 34 points a game when she's there.
At least 40 when she be on that Jumbotron.
He don't like to let his mama down.
Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Cash in on your sports fandom with Prize Picks.
SEC Unfiltered Live is brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks. Go download the Prize Picks app or go to prizepicks.com. And when you do, use the promo code SECU to receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks is the simplest fantasy game on the market, focused around prop total entries. You pick 2 to 6 players, and you can win up to 10 times on any entry. Prize Picks has no sharks, optimizers, or mass multi-entry. It's literally just you against the projection. They also allow mixed sport entry. So, for example, you can take the over on LeBron, parlay with the under on Mahomes. They've got college sports, pro sports, literally anything and everything you can think of. They have got it over at Prize Picks. They also have a slick, easy-to-use mobile app, both in the App Store and Google Play, and they're rated 4.8 stars in the App Store with rave reviews. So many fans and listeners of SEC Unfiltered have made tons of money with our friends at Prize Picks, and you should as well. So again, go download the Prize Picks app or head over to prizepicks.com, and when you do, use that promo code SECU to receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. We're also brought to you by our friends over at MyBookie. When your money's on the line, choose a trusted sports book that gives you tools to win, like MyBookie. At MyBookie, it doesn't matter if your team is up or down. You can easily cash out or bet the game live to come out on the winning side. Use MyBookie for daily odds boosts, same-game parlays, and take advantage of huge prize pool contests. Every single sack, fumble, and touchdown is another chance to hit payday. To get started, go to mybookie.ag, and on your first deposit, use promo code SECU to grab a deposit match up to $1,000. Try the MyBookie money bag as well to grab a potential Super Bowl front runner at long shot odds. Plus 38,000 on the Eagles and Chiefs. You won't find odds like that anywhere else. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere, only with MyBookie. Finally, SEC Unfiltered Live is brought to you by our friends over at Roback. Guys, if you haven't heard of Roback before, it's time to check them out. It's safe to say I'd bet on these guys any day of the week because I absolutely love their gear. I couldn't be more pumped to work with Roback. It's simply some of the most comfortable gear that I own. From the performance polos to the hoodies and the joggers, it's some of the best fit and best feel around. Roback's performance hoodies are some of the best pieces of clothing I've ever worn. I can't emphasize how soft these things are with great stretch and breathability. They're simply some of the best hoodies out there. Odds are, guys, if you see me during football season, baseball season, basketball season, or just here on SEC Unfiltered Live, you'll more than likely see me in a Roback hoodie. Secondly, guys, Roback's performance polos, they're some of the most comfortable polos out there. They're moisture wicking with four-way stretch, making them perfect for a game day, and they have the perfect fit. With crisp collars that don't lose their shape, I could not recommend these polos more. In all honesty, guys, Roback's been gaining traction big time. I'm sure you've seen them. They've been working with some of college football's biggest stars, such as Alabama's quarterback Jalen Milroe and former LSU head coach Ed Orgeron. So go check them out now and use the promo code SECU on Roback.com for a generous 20% off your first order. That's spelled RHOBACK.com. 20% off all bottoms, Q-zips, hoodies, and more with the promo code SECU. Baby. Ladies and gents, boys and girls, we are back here on this Wednesday, January the 10th, 2024. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Really excited, guys, to have you here. Again, thank you all so much for the continued love and support. You're on YouTube, guys. Be sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that bell icon, so you get notifications of when we go live. We drop new video content as well. Also, guys, be sure to check out the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast. You can check us out there. Again, we got Dan joining us. Dan Thompson, a Stadium and Gale coming up, guys. We're going to talk all things Florida Gators, everything football, baseball, basketball, really everything in between. There's some interesting things going on. I got some questions, some hard-hitting questions I want to ask Dan about the Florida Gators football program. Really excited to hear from him, guys. But again, in the meantime, we're talking all things SEC men's basketball. Who is the fourth best team in the SEC at this point, guys? Of course, this is a conversation. This is a debate where it's going to evolve, right, in the coming weeks. It's going to evolve. We're going to figure things out as these teams, simply put, just play each other. And I think you're going to see the top of the league separate themselves from the middle of the pack to the bottom third, what have you. But as you look at the Tuesday night action, guys, some very interesting results. We'll start there. First off, in Tuscaloosa, and it wasn't a lot of drama, by the way. We talked about this yesterday, which road team that was an underdog, might, have the best opportunity to go into a hostile environment and pull an upset, what have you. None of them did it. I think the only team that covered was Vandy, who was an 8.5-point favorite. They lost 8.5-point underdog. They lost the game by 8 points. So, I don't know. I mean, it's just, that was it. Everybody else either got blown out or the home favorite covered. You start in Tuscaloosa, guys. Alabama just took South Carolina to the woodshed, specifically in the second half of that game, by the way. In the first half, it looked like your typical South Carolina game this season, who has a top 20 defense. They're holding opponents, or they were, to 63 points per game, right? Alabama, an offense that averages, I think, 92 points per game, only had 30 at halftime. You thought to yourself, okay, South Carolina to pull the upset is doing everything they need to do. And I think what last night showed is, for an Alabama team, Nate Oates' squad that has not been clicking to this point, right? I think they haven't exactly lived up to the hype and expectations that many of us had for them. If you go cold against Alabama for any period of time, there's a good chance they're going to make you pay. And that's exactly what happened in this game, guys. South Carolina, literally with 18 second-half points, they could not make anything. Mark Sears goes off for Alabama. Again, a really big win. And the way they pulled away in that second half, guys, I think it just really shows what Bama is capable of, right? Again, this was a team, high expectations. Nate Oates is one of the best coaches in the SEC. And for whatever reason, I think a slow start, obviously, when you're replacing the number of players that Alabama has been replacing this season. You tend to get off to a slower start. But, I mean, they just really flex their muscles. And now I think, guys, you look at South Carolina moving forward, the bigger question for them is how do you respond, right? You're going to take your licks in this conference. Like, you're going to lose some games. Now, the way they lost, it's concerning. They got to have somebody outside of Michie Johnson step up, right? South Carolina was a really fun story to this point, 13-1. The only loss was on the road in a really close game to a top 20 team, top 25 team in Clemson, if you will. But this is the first real bit of adversity that South Carolina men's basketball has faced, and it's only one game. I don't think folks should hit the panic button, but if it becomes a trend, if it snowballs, if South Carolina lets this Alabama game carry over, you got a road game at Mizzou on Saturday, you lose that one, things can snowball in a hurry in the SEC. But, guys, on the flip side, how about Alabama, man? Again, I think they just showed they flexed their muscles. Hey, if you're not careful and if you have an off shooting night, Alabama has the offense to beat anybody in the conference. Guys, you look at that game, Kentucky and Missouri. Cats take care of business 90-77. Hey, give Mizzou credit. A team that just lost to Georgia, guys. They're going to be a desperate, hungry team this weekend. 0-2 in SEC play now. But I thought, battled for the most part. Really battled. I mean, you look at the kid, Sean East II, who's averaging 17 points per game. He had 19 points in that game against the Kentucky Wildcats, was their leader. Noah Carter down low, who had 20 points for the Missouri Tigers. So they had some standouts on the road. Bates with 18 points. Those are the top three scorers. But Kentucky just too much, man. When's the last time we saw a Kentucky team like this that could shoot the three ball the way they do? I mean, they shoot the lights out when it comes to the three. Just 7 for 23 last night. But still, guys, this Kentucky team, they like to shoot from deep, and normally they're making it. Normally they're making it at a very high clip. Dillingham, Mitchell, Wagner, they're fantastic players. Reeves as well. Of course, Aaron Bradshaw, guys, the veteran. That's a fantastic team that Cal's got, and I think certainly that is a Final Four caliber team that Cal has in Lexington. So, again, a really nice win for Kentucky. LSU beats Vandy, like I mentioned, 77-69. How about this, guys? LSU matching their SEC win total from last year. We've played 2 SEC games. They've won 2. There's 16 games left. So what Mac McMahon is doing, guys, really impressive. Again, protecting the home floor. And Vanderbilt, I think they fall to 5-10 now overall. Year 5 of Jeffrey Stackhouse. Rough. Very, very rough. If there's one thing we know right now, guys, at this point, Vandy is at the bottom. They are the worst team in the SEC. That's not up for debate. They are absolutely terrible. I will be shocked at this point with the way the season's going if Vanderbilt does not make a move on Jerry Stackhouse. Finally, guys, from last night's action, the Auburn Tigers. We knew this game between Auburn and Texas A&M was going to be a rock fight, and it lived up to the hype, guys, 66-55 to the final. I think that says a lot, guys, about Auburn pulling away in that basketball game. Again, Texas A&M under Buzz Williams, you know they're going to click at some point. You hold Wade Taylor to just 8 points in this game. The defense was fantastic, guys. They held, get this, they held Texas A&M, guys, to 29% shooting. 29%. I mean, that is crazy. Williams with 22, Johnson with 14. Auburn, I think Auburn, guys, this conversation we're having, they have established themselves as one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the SEC, with Bruce Pearl leading the way. This is a team that went far last year. Again, I think they are realistically a team that if things click, this team has the potential to make a really, really deep run in March Madness, be a maybe even Final Four caliber team. Bruce Pearl's got him a damn good basketball team. That was a solid win over a Texas A&M team that I think is going to prove to be much better than what their record says right now. Guys, as we turn our attention to tonight, Mississippi State hosting the Tennessee Volunteers. And guys, you look at this game, Tennessee, I think we could all agree, one of the top 2 teams in the SEC. One of the top 2 teams in the SEC. As we look at the spread, if I can get it pulled up here, I'm just looking for it. Okay. Tennessee is a 2.5-point favorite at Mississippi State, guys. This is a great night for home underdogs. Great night. I don't know that I'm picking State to pull the upset, but I tell you what, the physicality in this game is going to be a lot of fun to watch. Also, what does Tolu Smith do for Mississippi State? Can Adu follow up his performance for Tennessee from last game to tonight? Really excited for this one, guys. I think Mississippi State, they're one of these teams, guys. Mississippi State, we kind of don't know what they are yet. Lost to South Carolina on their home floor over the weekend, trying to bounce back on their own home floor, right? I think Mississippi State's a team that's going to be really, really pesky. I don't know that they're one of the top 2 or 3 best, but I could see them being a 10-8, 11-7 type of conference team. They've still got a lot of talent. Tennessee, the 2.5-point favorite on the road. Georgia hosts the Arkansas Razorbacks. Guys, get this. You want to know how far Arkansas has fallen. Georgia's a 1.5-point favorite in this game. I would have never believed that in the preseason. And give Georgia credit. I mean, give Georgia a lot of credit. I think Georgia's a team, we're not necessarily itching to give a lot of respect because it's Georgia basketball. Like, when is Georgia good at basketball? They can earn a lot of respect tonight. They get this dub. And for Arkansas, man, I know you're on the road, but man, at some point, you feel like Eric Musselman's group has got to get it turned around, or we could see things go off the rails, no doubt. And finally, guys, Florida is a 2.5-point favorite at Ole Miss. Now, this might be a battle between 2 teams that could realistically argue that they're the 4th best team in the SEC as we have this conversation. Really pumped for this one, guys. Ole Miss is a really tough place to play. Florida coming off of that loss at home to Kentucky. Really good Kentucky team, obviously. I'm excited because I think there's going to be fireworks in this one. I will say this. I think of the 2 road favorites, I think there will be an upset in one of those games. I think there will be Let me go ahead and pick it, by the way. I'm going to take Tennessee at Mississippi State. I'm going to take Georgia against Arkansas. I can't put any faith in Arkansas until I see them show up. I think Ole Miss is going to bounce back. They were embarrassed against Tennessee. Everybody's calling them fraudulent. Everybody's saying they're no good, right? They skated through non-conference. I think Ole Miss tonight proved they were worth the hype. And I think Florida falls to 0-2. Both these teams desperate to stay out of an 0-2 hole in conference play. Now, again, this begs the question, guys. Who is truly the 4th best team in the SEC? Is it Alabama, who I think has a strong case? Is it Ole Miss, who I think tonight can prove a lot? Is it Florida? Same thing. I would probably say right now, guys, I do think it's the Alabama Crimson Tide. I do. I think it's the Alabama Crimson Tide right now. This can change. This probably will change, this conversation. I think that Tennessee, Kentucky, and Auburn, for now, have separated themselves from the rest of the SEC. I think they're in a different class. I think they're in a tier by themselves. In your second tier, I think that Alabama is at the top of that. I think you could have argued South Carolina before last night, right? Ole Miss, you can argue, but they need to bounce back from that beatdown against Tennessee. Florida, they need to get a big win tonight. I think Florida is in that discussion. Mississippi State maybe could be in the discussion, but, they lost to South Carolina, who got killed by Alabama. So I think right now, Bama is that team, right? Able to survive at Memorial Gymnasium, able to take South Carolina to the woodshed, a team that folks were really high on. I think it's Alabama right now, but make no mistake, I think this is a conversation that will evolve as this 2023-2024 season plays out. Guys, we're going to jump into a quick break. On the other side, we'll talk Hugh Freeze taking over the play calling at Auburn, what it means for the Auburn Tigers, and at 1:15, we'll get my good friend Dan Thompson of Stadium and Gale on the airwaves. Guys, all that and more on the other side of this break. You're tuned in to SEC Unfiltered Live.
Yo, you think Dallas' Power 4 gonna drop 30 tomorrow?
Boy, you tripping.
Did you see his mom made a post about going to the game?
What? Hold up. His mama gonna be there?
He's been averaging like 34 points a game when she's there.
At least 40 when she be on that Jumbotron.
He don't like to let his mama down.
Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Cash in on your sports fandom with Prize Picks.
SEC Unfiltered Live is brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks. Go download the Prize Picks app or go to prizepicks.com. And when you do, use the promo code SECU to receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks is the simplest fantasy game on the market, focused around prop total entries. You pick 2 to 6 players, and you can win up to 10 times on any entry. Prize Picks has no sharks, optimizers, or mass multi-entry. It's literally just you against the projection. They also allow mixed sport entries. So, for example, you can take the over on LeBron, parlay with the under on Mahomes. They've got college sports, pro sports, literally anything and everything you can think of. They have got it over at Prize Picks. They also have a slick, easy-to-use mobile app, both in the App Store and Google Play, and they're rated 4.8 stars in the App Store with rave reviews. So many fans and listeners of SEC Unfiltered have made tons of money with our friends at Prize Picks, and you should as well. So again, go download the Prize Picks app or head over to prizepicks.com, and when you do, use that promo code SECU to receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. We're also brought to you by our friends over at MyBookie. When your money's on the line, choose a trusted sports book that gives you tools to win, like MyBookie. At MyBookie, it doesn't matter if your team is up or down. You can easily cash out or bet the game live to come out on the winning side. Use MyBookie for daily odds boosts, same-game parlays, and take advantage of huge prize pool contests. Every single sack, fumble, and touchdown is another chance to hit payday. To get started, go to mybookie.ag, and on your first deposit, use promo code SECU to grab a deposit match up to $1,000. Try the MyBookie money bag as well to grab a potential Super Bowl frontrunner at long shot odds, plus 38,000 on the Eagles and Chiefs. You won't find odds like that anywhere else. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere, only with MyBookie. Finally, SEC Unfiltered Live is brought to you by our friends over at Roback. Guys, if you haven't heard of Roback before, it's time to check them out. It's safe to say I'd bet on these guys any day of the week because I absolutely love their gear. I couldn't be more pumped to work with Roback. It's simply some of the most comfortable gear that I own. From the performance polos to the hoodies and the joggers, it's some of the best fit and best feel around. Roback's performance hoodies are some of the best pieces of clothing I've ever worn. I can't emphasize how soft these things are with great stretch and breathability. They're simply some of the best hoodies out there. Odds are, guys, if you see me during football season, baseball season, basketball season, or just here on SEC Unfiltered Live, you'll more than likely see me in a Roback hoodie. Secondly, guys, Roback's performance polos, they're some of the most comfortable polos out there. They're moisture wicking with 4-way stretch, making them perfect for a game day, and they have the perfect fit. With crisp collars that don't lose their shape, I could not recommend these polos more. In all honesty, guys, Roback's been gaining traction big time. I'm sure you've seen them. They've been working with some of college football's biggest stars, such as Alabama's quarterback Jalen Milroe and former LSU head coach Ed Orgeron. So go check them out now and use the promo code SECU on Roback.com for a generous 20% off your first order. That's spelled RHOBACK.com. 20% off all bottoms, Q-zips, hoodies, and more with the promo code SECU. Ladies and gents, boys and girls, we are back here on this Wednesday, January the 10th, 2024. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in, guys. Do not forget, at 1:15, we've got our good friend Dan Thompson of Stadium and Gale to talk all things Florida Gators, football, baseball, basketball, everything in between, guys. Got a lot to discuss with our friend Dan. Always really good stuff to have him on the show, guys. In the meantime, we're going to get this one in really quickly. And by the way, I want to highlight this because I saw this over the break. This comes from Darren Rovell. Darren Rovell says, the guys who celebrate Mr. Irrelevant, the last pick in the NFL draft, have announced the Irrelevant Bowl, featuring the worst two teams in college football next year. The bowl game is looking for a venue. This year, it would have been 2-10 Vanderbilt, facing off against 1-11 Akron. Folks, we need that more than we need air to breathe. And I think it's just funny because you got folks out there, there's too many bowl games, cut out the bowl games. And we're literally adding a bowl game for the two worst teams in college football. So bowl games aren't going anywhere, folks. They're not. No time soon, which is a great thing, by the way. Which is a great thing. Guys, let's go ahead and get into this. Hugh Freeze is officially taking over the play calling duties on the Plains. What a win if you were a fan of the Auburn Tigers, guys. This being reported by Chris Lowe of ESPN. Other sites now, Auburn's on 3 side, I believe, now running with this. It does sound like this is going to be happening. Guys, this is just simply put a move that makes sense. And I don't know why I didn't think about it before, but he hired Philip Montgomery. Why? I don't know if it's because, he wanted to be kind of squeaky clean when he came to Auburn, do all the right things. He's back in the SEC. Okay, let me employ a DC. Let me employ an OC. Let me do things how you're supposed to do them, right? Color in between the lines. Hugh Freeze isn't a color in between the lines guy. He's a gunslinger. He take risks. He's edgy, right? Great move. This is, guys, I would be throwing a freaking parade if I were a fan of the Auburn Tigers, right? You look at his history of success, calling plays, running offense. This is how Hugh Freeze built his reputation, right? This is how Hugh Freeze built himself into being one of the most sought-after head coaches in college football. He called plays at Arkansas State, Ole Miss, and Liberty. He's done it everywhere he's been. And guys, guess what they've done everywhere he's been? You know what? They've had success offensively. Every single place he's been. Every place, right? Hugh Freeze's Ole Miss offense averaged more than 32 points per game each of his last 2 seasons at Oxford. 32 points per game. His 2020 and 2021 offenses at Liberty, they both finished in the top 25 nationally in scoring. This is a dude who knows what he's doing. He's had tons of success in doing it. Tons of success, right? And guys, in my opinion, listen, yesterday I gave my way too early record predictions. Subject to change, no doubt. But I had Auburn at 8-4. And I think it's only a matter of time. It's a win, not if, with Auburn under Hugh Freeze. It's a win, not if. Hugh Freeze is going to have Auburn football back near the top of the SEC sooner rather than later. I think a move like this expedites that process. I really genuinely do. I think Hugh Freeze dialing it up, getting back to what he does best. And listen, I still don't feel comfortable with Peyton Thorne at quarterback. I really don't. But if there is a guy who can be that quarterback whisperer that Peyton Thorne needs, that Auburn needs, it's Hugh Freeze. If there's anybody out there who can get the most out of Peyton Thorne, it's Hugh Freeze. Look at the quarterbacks he's worked with. The guy has been a quarterback whisperer throughout his time as a head coach in college football. I think back to Swag Kelly, I think back to what he did at Ole Miss, man. I mean, it's just one guy after another. If there's anybody who can turn Peyton Thorne into a respectable quarterback, it's Hugh Freeze. I think that Auburn offense, guys, I think they're going to be set for a major turnaround. This is just a no-brainer move. And again, you're a fan of Auburn, guys, you got to be ecstatic. I mean, you really, truly have got to be ecstatic. All respect to Philip Montgomery. And folks say, well, it was already his offense. Like, Philip Montgomery was just the OC. He already had a hand in the offense. Guys, having a hand in the offense and controlling the offense, running the offense, calling the plays, being the guy, there's a big difference. There's a big, big difference, man. Huge difference in that. So I think this is a great day, or it's been a great last couple of days because it was reported a couple of days ago. But I think this is a great thing for Auburn football, man. I think it's a huge win. If you're an Auburn fan, again, it's a matter of when, not if, for Auburn. And this move right here only gets the Tigers closer to that goal. Guys, we now await our good friend Dan Thompson. Stadium and Gale. We now await Dan Thompson, Stadium and Gale, as we're going to talk all things Gators with him. Again, appreciate you guys tuning in, checking us out. Do not forget, if you are on YouTube, be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that bell icon so you get notifications of when we go live, when we drop new video content as well. Also, guys, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, that's where you can check out the podcast every single day, guys. We're dropping video content daily. We're dropping the podcast content daily. Whatever you need. We're live right here, noon to 2 p.m. Eastern time every single day. We've also got an SEC Unfiltered Discord. Click our link in bio, guys. It is a free Discord for anyone who wants to join. Come check it out. The beauty is in the banter there. And, of course, guys, we're all across social media, X, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. You already know the deal, guys. Content bleeding out of the eyeballs. Do not forget also, by the way, every single day, last 30 or 45 minutes or so, we take your questions, your comments, and your voicemails in our daily mailbag segment. I want to hear from you. Really exciting stuff, guys. Again, we await our good friend Dan Thompson, Stadium and Gale. One of the best in the business when it comes to talking the Florida Gators. So really excited to chat with him. Again, I can't wait. And I see Octavian Cador. He's in here. We got a Gator in here. Love that, Octavian. Tell your Gator friends about the show. We'd love to have them. I'm geeking over this Mr. Irrelevant Bowl, man. I'm geeking over it. Really, truly. That's incredible. That is absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible, man. Let's see. Somebody said, what would be the incentive for players to play in the game? That's a really good point. Like, that's like after you, yeah. Somebody says, I have serious doubts a school is going to sign their team and players up for the, quote, make fun of us because we sucked so bad bowl. I mean, yeah. I mean, it's one of those things, though, like you need the practice, you know? Interesting. Anyways, guys, 843-790-3377 is that number that you can reach out to us, guys. You can text that number, call that number, whatever you like. Love to hear from you. Final 30 minutes or so, guys, like I mentioned, of the show. We are taking your questions, comments, and voicemails in our daily mailbag segment. And continue to follow along on social media, guys. Like I mentioned, content bleeding out of the eyeballs. Really, really good stuff. Again, I see Octavian Cador in here. We got a Gator in here. We're about to talk Gators here in just a second. Sieber's in here as well, representing the Tennessee Volunteers. Great stuff. Billy Cotton's in here representing, I think, just having a good time. I think he's every other comments about him getting lit on a Wednesday. So I can respect that. I respect the heck out of that, man. Charles said Kentucky overall. So we got a little bit of SEC East flavor hanging on to the final days of divisions, if you will. We've got a bunch of different representation and, of course, Gamecock representations in here, guys. I really appreciate you all tuning in, showing love, showing support, and being part of the show. With that being said, guys, like I mentioned, he's one of the best in the business when it comes to talking all things Florida Gators. Our good friend Dan Thompson of Stadium and Gale. Those guys do a fantastic job. We bring him on now. Dan, what's going on, man? Appreciate you taking the time. It's great to chat once again.
Man, it's great to be on this side of the show. You've been on Stadium and Gale a number of times, so it's exciting to talk to you, my friend.
Yeah, glad to have you on, man, for sure. And let's start with this, Dan. It was an interesting season for Florida. Now the attention, of course, has turned to the offseason. Can you explain to me what an executive head coach to the defensive coordinator is and the staff changes or moves that Billy Napier has made? I don't think there's still no offensive coordinator. There's still 2 O-line coaches. There may or may not still be no special teams coach. Your thoughts on what's going on right now behind the scenes with the coaching staff side of things with Billy Napier's group?
Yeah, I know a lot of fans want an offensive coordinator. They want a special teams change. They wanted defensive changes, right? I actually tweeted this the other day. It doesn't seem like whatever Billy Napier does is enough to satiate what Gator fans want. And maybe that's warranted and justified. Maybe some of it's not. What does the executive head coach of defense do? I think it's just a way to be able to pay somebody more money. More than anything, that's what I think it is. I still think Austin Armstrong is going to be the one calling plays with help of Ron Roberts. Austin Armstrong learned from Ron Roberts together. So I think that the collective of them will hopefully make the Gators defense a little bit stronger than it has been the last few years. But you make a change at cornerbacks coach. You make a change at defensive line coach. You bring in a couple of new guys that are younger, right? Will Harris comes from the NFL, maybe 5-6 years of experience as a defensive backs coach. You bring Gerald Chapman in from Tulane, who's a name that kind of came out of nowhere. A younger guy, again, a lot of experience, talked about well, and definitely a pedigree and a guy that you think could get there one day. But those are just questions that, Gator fans have. And Ron Roberts certainly brings a lot of maturity to the defensive side of the ball. And now it's the opportunity to look at offense. And I wouldn't necessarily say that the Gators are going to be done on offensive changes. We have some contracts running up at the end of January. You have some NFL coaching pedigrees where there might be a tap on the shoulder to say, hey, go check out the job boards in the NFL.
So, Dan, we talk about the Florida Gators football program right now, 5-7 in 2023. Recruiting took a hit on signing day. This stuff with the staff changes. What positive is going on with Florida football? Because I feel like every time somebody talks about Florida lately, it feels like it's negative. What are the signs of hope for the future? Because there's got to be something, right? There's got to be some good going on right now that leads you to believe that things are going to get turned around and there are brighter days ahead.
Sure. I think a couple of bright spots are certainly DJ Lagway, the 5-star quarterback, kind of probably, in my opinion, probably at least the top 2 quarterback in the country coming in. You get LJ McCray, who's one of the best defensive linemen recruits coming in. And certainly Florida, which at one point was ranked 3 and 4 in the recruiting rankings, would have liked to finish there. Certainly didn't happen. The transfer portal, you've got Joey Slackman coming in from the University of Pennsylvania, Ivy League Defensive Player of the Year. You get Shamir DK from Wisconsin, who Graham Mertz was passing to for a number of years. You get a couple guys in the portal. You get Pup Howard, unfortunately, from South Carolina, to hopefully bolster that team. And then you add Miles Graham, you add Aaron Charles. It looks like some of the areas where Florida had gaps, they're starting to fill those gaps in a little bit. You make a change at strength and conditioning coach. Defensive backs weren't very good. Corey Raymond maybe just didn't work out at Florida. So you make a change there. Defensive line didn't get enough push, didn't get enough sacks on the quarterback. You make a change there. So you look at it as hopeful optimism and maybe cautious optimism that at least changes are being made, which weren't happening under Dan Mullen, didn't happen under Jim McElwain, and didn't happen under Will Muschamp. Now, then you start to look at it and say, hey, do we have an issue at the top if we have to make all these changes finishing year 2? But that's probably where the optimism lies. Certainly Graham Mertz is serviceable, if not one of the, top half quarterbacks in the SEC. You get back, some young talent on the team. So there's definitely some optimism. There's not a ton of optimism. And I think that's what has Gator fans concerned, because the SEC is obviously very, very challenging each and every year.
Yeah, Dan, you mentioned Graham Mertz, a guy. He's obviously returning for the 2024 season, and admittedly, I was someone that we didn't know a lot about this guy, and I think it was really popular to kind of trash Graham Mertz and the Florida Gators last offseason for whatever reason. I had him ranked 14th in my quarterback rankings going into 2023, and it's funny. It was actually Gator fans that sort of pushed me to release a midseason quarterback rankings, if you will, because it was such an egregious miss, and we just released our way too early quarterback rankings, we actually released, I missed that, our 2023 postseason quarterback rankings, and I had Graham Mertz top half of the league, had him ahead of Spencer Rattler, which, of course, sat really well with Gamecock fans. But your thoughts on him leading this Florida offense? I mean, I thought he was obviously a player that, was one of the best storylines in the SEC, overachieved. I mean, do you see any sort of quarterback battle with him and Lagway, or do you think it's Graham Mertz's team and Lagway, you hope to see him just kind of get groomed under Mertz and prepare for that starting role in 25?
I think, Chris, you were 100% right to have a pessimistic view of Graham Mertz coming to Florida. Gator fans did too. There would be some people that have some revisionist history about how they were the one hyping him up. But Graham Mertz wasn't great at Wisconsin. He was a highly recruited guy. I think he was the highest ranked quarterback that Wisconsin had ever signed. And it just wasn't working there, right? And then the head coach gets fired during his third year at Wisconsin. And so he comes to Florida, and Billy Napier goes on his speaking tour and said that they evaluated 30-some-odd quarterbacks, and Graham Mertz was the best option. A lot of people rolled their eyes, and because they had their eyes set on Pratt from Tulane and the guy from Coastal Carolina that's now at NC State, whose name I'm forgetting. But Graham Mertz did exceptional this year. Just under 3,000 yards, got injured in the second to last game of the year, or else he would have thrown for 3,000 yards, 20 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. All 3 interceptions were tipped balls by the receiver or the tight end. So he did a good enough job, and I think another offseason will push him to be, if he can be just as good next year, I think that Florida's in a good spot. What they need to work on is his ability to move the ball in chunk plays. Florida did a lot of screens, a lot of short outs. He had an 8.1 yards per average throw, right? So needs to see that improve a little bit. They've got some weapons. They've got some young talent. So they'll have to get a little bit better with him being able to move the ball downfield. I think DJ Lagway, just like any highly ranked 5-star quarterback that doesn't have any other options behind Graham Mertz, I think he'll be able to come in. There'll be a couple games where hopefully he'll be able to work in, at least the second half. But I think there's a couple packages where DJ Lagway will come in, and it's just hard to keep a guy that talented. But DJ Lagway still does need some work. He's going to need a lot of work with Ryan O'Hara, who's the quarterback coach, and Billy Napier. But I definitely see an opportunity for DJ Lagway to play some. But I don't think that there's a quarterback battle in Florida next year.
Dan, I ask you this, half joking, half serious. Who made Florida's 2024 schedule? Because, I mean, it is as brutal as you could ask. 11 Power 5 opponents. Your non-conference team. Outside of Samford, you've got Miami, Central Florida, and Florida State. Then you've got the SEC gauntlet, which we're all familiar with. I mean, have you ever seen a schedule like this? I mean, this is crazy. For a coach, especially in a program – in Billy Napier and this Gators program that's facing, some adversity. I mean, they do no favors for Florida going into 2024.
I was just looking it up the other day or yesterday, saw this, that Florida's opponent record was 106-50 this year, right? So that's obviously challenging and tough. What Gator faithful are hoping for is that a lot of those schools are making quarterback changes. A lot of them did graduate, a lot of talent. Florida had amongst the youngest rosters in the SEC and in college football last year. So hopefully, they keep talking. Billy Napier, Scott Strickland, who's the athletic director, mentioned they've got to get a little bit older. So hopefully that's what Gator fans are hoping for, that next year they can make that jump up. But man, I'll tell you what, that is a brutal schedule. We have another game with UCF on the calendar in a couple years. We play Miami again in a couple years. We have Notre Dame on the schedule in a few years, Arizona State, Colorado's on the schedule in the future as well. So there's a lot. And Scott Strickland did this before the SEC added Texas and Oklahoma, because we had away games planned at both of those schools. So I get it. I know what you were trying to do. You want to get those premier games. You don't want to play Southeast Louisiana State every game. But Florida's schedule is very, very hard. And it's Billy Napier doesn't have a long leash to not deliver a good team. Florida has 3 straight seasons under 500. So I hate to say that it's going to be a fourth, but it would be a fool of me to not at least throw around the opportunity that Florida might go under 500 again, not just because of the talent of the team, but because of the talent of the schedule that they have ahead. So it could be another brutal year in Gainesville.
Yeah, under 500. What is it? 3 straight years for the first time. I mean, since definitely before
70s.
Steve Spurrier. Since
Yep.
a very, very long time. Which, again, it's weird. Honestly, it's weird to look at the state Florida football is in, and you see last year the Vegas win total of 5.5, and you're like, this is the Florida Gators. Like this makes no sense. So that leads me to this question then. And I like Billy Napier. I met him last year at SEC Media Days. I think he's a really cool dude. Was very kind to me. But as well as I do, man, it's a game about, it's a results-oriented business. And the leash is not long. Like you mentioned, there's not a lot of patience in Gainesville. And that's a program where I think you get 3 years to get it going. And if it ain't rolling in year 3, your seat's going to be scorching. What's the win total Billy Napier has to hit this year? Because, I mean, again, even if you've got a really, really good team, would struggle to go 8-4 with that schedule. But on the flip side, I think Florida fans, I mean, the expectations are what they are. So, are Florida fans, as the administration, are they going to be patient, or is it one of those things where it's, damn the schedule, damn this, damn that, win now or you're out?
So the fan base and the administration, I think, are different. I think the fan base has seen enough. I think that there's a lot of there's certainly a big contingent of fans that believe Billy Napier can turn it around. There's a very loud contingent that whatever decision he makes is the wrong decision. I think he's teetering of losing much of the fan base. The administration, on the other hand, Scott Strickland, the athletic director, has already hired 2 coaches, 2 football head coaches. You don't get a third. At a school like Florida, where football is king, even though I tell people all the time, Florida isn't historically a great football program. You have some of the 80s, you get put on probation, then you have Steve Spurrier, Ron Zook, Urban Meyer, and then a couple of good years over the next 12, right? But other than that, Florida wasn't very good before that. However, Scott Strickland, the athletic director, you don't normally get the chance to hire 3 coaches. You can't fire 2, hire a third, and everything's just fine and keep it on. Now, the Gator fan base that's upset with Billy Napier is probably even more upset with Scott Strickland, just because basketball hasn't been as good as it was. Mike White probably hung around a little too long. Basketball program looks pretty good this year, but their revenue generating sports have been struggling. So I think Billy Napier is going to be safe because Scott Strickland wants him to Scott Strickland wants to keep his job. And the only way to do that is to throw his undying support behind Billy Napier. Because I think that if it doesn't work out with Billy Napier, Scott Strickland's first to go. And then Billy Napier might be after that. So that's the order of operations I think happens.
So do you think any record then? Because, I mean, that's going to be the talk, right? All offseason. That's all we're going to hear is, what's the minimum expectation? Seed is score. Is there a hotter seed in the SEC? Do you see any way? I mean, if they miss a bowl game, do you think it's possible? I obviously there's going to be a chain reaction, but I mean, or is it one of those things where Gator fans need to get comfortable and really buy in and dig in their heels with this thing?
Well, they're not going to get comfortable, and they're not going to dig in their heels for 3 straight losing seasons, right? No matter how hard the schedule is, that's what you sign up for in the SEC, and you have to be able to recruit. And this is, as my buddy Paul says, it's a talent acquisition and retention business. And if you've not done a good job of retaining the talent that you need and acquiring the talent that you need to win, then you're not going to be successful with this schedule or even the Alabama schedule or some of the other schedules that are in the SEC this year. I don't know if there's a win total. He has to make a bowl game or else the fan base is completely gone. You have to see drastic improvement across all phases of the game. And you saw some marginal improvement, even though the record was just as bad this year as it was the year before. You saw some improvement by the young guy, Eugene Wilson, a couple other players, but your biggest issues are the offensive line and the defensive line. You just saw it with Michigan in the national championship. You have to win the line of scrimmage. And right now, Florida's not winning either. And that could be the silver bullet for Billy Napier. So we'll see. Still have time in the transfer portal. Have another one. But optimism is not sky high right now. And I say that as a noted sunshine pumper.
Dan, final thing before we get you out of here. You mentioned Gators men's basketball. They got a big one tonight against Ole Miss. Your thoughts on this year's team? Obviously, we're very, very early in SEC play. Florida drops their opener. Hard-fought game against the Kentucky Wildcats, which there's no shame in losing to one of the best teams in college basketball, which is Kentucky. But thoughts on what Florida might be this year? And, again, where's the optimism level for the Gators on the hardwood?
Yeah, this team is made up of almost all transfers. They've got a couple of recruits that they have. Alex Condon is doing very, very well. He came over from Australia. You have a couple of good players on this team. They have an identity. They just have to be able to stay consistent. They're at least going to that Kentucky game. They're the number one number one rebounding team, in the country. So keep that up. They've got a lot of talent. I think that this team's going to make the dance right now. I think if you look at the bracket reports, because Florida's without that big quad one win, they're the first team out. But I think, going through this SEC schedule, the way that they played against Kentucky, if they can keep doing that, keep getting a little bit better. If Riley Kugel can get back into his stride a little bit more like he did against Kentucky, I think Florida will be fine. I think they'll make the dance. Todd Golden has, won the fan base over so far this year. I think they're 10-4 right now. So he keeps going. I think Florida's future is bright, but they've built through the transfer portal, so they'll probably have to do this again next year.
Dan Thompson, Stadium and Gale, again, one of the best in the business when it comes to talking Florida Gators. Dan, let folks know where they can check out your work.
Absolutely. You can follow us on social media. It's Stadium and Gale, Gale. So Stadium and Gale. You can follow me on Twitter at DK Thompson. And thanks so much, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, let's do it again soon, Dan. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Chris.
Yeah, man. Take care. Great stuff, guys. Our good friend Dan Thompson, Stadium and Gale, talking all things Florida Gators. Always a good time chat with him. I've been on his show a couple of times, and like you mentioned, I didn't even realize that. That's the first time I've had him on our airwaves. I thought we had done that before. I guess not. Either way, guys, we're going to jump into a quick break. On the other side, we dive into our daily mailbag segment. I want to hear from you, your questions, comments, and voicemails here on this Wednesday. All that and more, guys, on the other side of this break. You're tuned in to SEC Unfiltered Live.
Yo, you think Dallas' Power 4 gonna drop 30 tomorrow?
Boy, you tripping.
Did you see his mom made a post about going to the game?
What? Hold up. His mama gonna be there?
He's been averaging like 34 points a game when she's there.
At least 40 when she be on that Jumbotron.
He don't like to let his mama down.
Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Cash in on your sports fandom with Prize Picks.
SEC Unfiltered Live is brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks. Go download the Prize Picks app or go to prizepicks.com. And when you do, use the promo code SECU to receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks is the simplest fantasy game on the market, focused around prop total entries. You pick 2 to 6 players, and you can win up to 10 times on any entry. Prize Picks has no sharks, optimizers, or mass multi-entry. It's literally just you against the projection. They also allow mixed sport entries. So, for example, you can take the over on LeBron, parlay with the under on Mahomes. They've got college sports, pro sports, literally anything and everything you can think of. They have got it over at Prize Picks. They also have a slick, easy-to-use mobile app, both on the App Store and Google Play, and they're rated 4.8 stars in the App Store with rave reviews. So many fans and listeners of SEC Unfiltered have made tons of money with our friends at Prize Picks, and you should as well. So again, go download the Prize Picks app or head over to prizepicks.com, and when you do, use that promo code SECU to receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. We're also brought to you by our friends over at MyBookie. When your money's on the line, choose a trusted sports book that gives you tools to win, like MyBookie. At MyBookie, it doesn't matter if your team is up or down. You can easily cash out or bet the game live to come out on the winning side. Use MyBookie for daily odds boosts, same-game parlays, and take advantage of huge prize pool contests. Every single sack, fumble, and touchdown is another chance to hit payday. To get started, go to mybookie.ag, and on your first deposit, use promo code SECU to grab a deposit match up to $1,000. Try the MyBookie money bag as well to grab a potential Super Bowl front runner at long shot odds, plus 38,000 on the Eagles and Chiefs. You won't find odds like that anywhere else. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere, only with MyBookie. Finally, SEC Unfiltered Live is brought to you by our friends over at Roback. Guys, if you haven't heard of Roback before, it's time to check them out. It's safe to say I'd bet on these guys any day of the week because I absolutely love their gear. I couldn't be more pumped to work with Roback. It's simply some of the most comfortable gear that I own. From the performance polos to the hoodies and the joggers, it's some of the best fit and best feel around. Roback's performance hoodies are some of the best pieces of clothing I've ever worn. I can't emphasize how soft these things are with great stretch and breathability. They're simply some of the best hoodies out there. Odds are, guys, if you see me during football season, baseball season, basketball season, or just here on SEC Unfiltered Live, you'll more than likely see me in a Roback hoodie. Secondly, guys, Roback's performance polos, they're some of the most comfortable polos out there. They're moisture wicking with 4-way stretch, making them perfect for a game day, and they have the perfect fit. With crisp collars that don't lose their shape, I could not recommend these polos more. In all honesty, guys, Roback's been gaining traction big time. I'm sure you've seen them. They've been working with some of college football's biggest stars, such as Alabama's quarterback Jalen Milroe and former LSU head coach Ed Orgeron. So go check them out now and use the promo code SECU on Roback.com for a generous 20% off your first order. That's spelled RHOBACK.com. 20% off all bottoms, Q-zips, hoodies, and more with the promo code SECU. Ladies and gents, boys and girls, we are back here on this Wednesday, January the 10th, 2024. Final 23 minutes or so here on the show, guys, and we have dove into the Daily Mailbag segment, taking your questions, your comments, and your voicemails at 843-790-3377. Our daily mailbag, guys, where, again, you guys sort of control the subject matter and what we discuss, what we talk about, guys. And again, love the interaction, love the banter, and I appreciate you guys doing that and providing that. We go to the text line. And again, you can text the number, 843-790-3377. That's a great way for your text to stand out. If I'm Lamont, this team is running fast break drills until their souls blow out. This is the equivalence to the Georgia-South Carolina game this year. Just go into the locker room and sip your tea and get slapped in the second half. That comes over from Blake Queen. Thank you, Blake. Blake texted that late last night. He was not thrilled with South Carolina's nearly 30-point loss to Alabama. Yeah, I mean, listen, man, I think that you just got to chalk it up as a bad night. I mean, that's pretty much it, man. I think you got to chalk it up as a bad night. South Carolina went ice cold in that second half, and you just simply – you can't afford to go ice cold against Alabama. You can't do it. They have one of the best offenses in college basketball. So give credit to the Gamecocks for fighting hard for a half. But, you know, it was a game that I unfortunately thought could go that way. It was a game that, you know, South Carolina has been a really fun story to this point. But as the schedule gets tougher and the realities of SEC play set in, you might see more results like that. Let's jump to the chat now. John Rice says, what's up? How's everyone been? John, I've been good, man. How you been? How you been, John? Appreciate you taking the time to tune in, man. Great to hear from you. Thank you so much for being here, man. Octavian Cador says that Billy Napier has to win now. Has to win now. Octavian says Florida might win the SEC this year. Think I'm crazy. I can see it. Octavian, I think you're crazy. I think you're high. I think you're drunk. I think you're on. I don't even know what you're on. I really don't know what you're on. All due respect, Octavian. I appreciate you. I value your opinion. But, man, I don't know about all that. James Kendall, what does the FSU football team and their bowl game have in common with our basketball team last night? A beatdown? Is that what it is? Sieber says, can we talk about how scary Ole Miss and Mizzou will look next season? I mean, we're going to spend a lot of time talking about that, Sieber. We're going to spend a lot of time talking about that. I mean, I think both teams realistically should have 12-team playoff aspirations. Here's the thing, though, Sieber. It's going to be a fun conversation. It's going to be a fun conversation. Which of those two is more likely to disappoint? And why do I don't think Mizzou is catching the same hype. I don't know if it's because Missouri still doesn't have like the brand recognition, or they're just not viewed the same as a program as Ole Miss is. I don't know if it's because, Lane Kiffin has more notoriety than Eli Drinkwitz still. I don't really know why. But it does seem like, and those two teams did about the same thing, right? I mean, Ole Miss lost to Alabama and Georgia. Missouri lost to LSU and Georgia. So, I mean, it's like they had both beat Big Ten teams in big bowl games. Both had very similar seasons. Both returned their quarterback. Both returned their top options at wide receiver. Both have crushed in the portal. Both lost their running back. So they're both very similar. Both have favorable schedules, I think, in 2024. It's funny, though. I still think, and I'm like, I think you know what I think it is, guys? I think we say it's more likely Mizzou will take the step back because it's almost like, okay, how does Mizzou follow it up? You know what I mean? How do they follow it up? Ole Miss feels more like it has more staying power. But again, this just goes back to the whole disrespect thing. I mean, again, I had Mizzou 9-3 in my way too early prediction. So it's not like I'm sitting here saying Mizzou's going to be god-awful. They're going to be terrible. No, it's just an interesting conversation. It just really it reinforces the fact that Missouri is disrespected time and time and time again. Let's see. Ruben Nation says, whose seat is hotter, Billy or Pittman? Ruben Nation, I'm going to say Billy Napier just because I think the expectations are higher at Florida, right? It's just bottom line. The expectations, they're higher at Florida. So, does 6-6 get Sam Pittman back? I think you could argue it will. It could. I'm not saying it will. It could, right? But, I mean, think about it. We're talking about Billy Napier's hot seat in year 3. Sam Pittman is going into year 5, right? So, at least I think, or year 4. Year 4 for Pittman? I think year 4. Because he had that, he had 2020, 2021, 2022. Okay, so year 5. This is year 5. Excuse me. Going into year 5. So, I just think, man, what Billy Napier's facing with the schedule, they missed in recruiting from the standpoint of they were ranked in the top 5, then fell out of the top 15. I will say Billy Napier's seat is hotter, barely though. I mean, dude, Sam Pittman's is scorching. It's scorching. John Rice, here's a question. Who out of the SEC will make the playoff last, except Vandy? Who makes the playoff last? Who's the last team that we talk about that has not made the playoff? John, I think it's probably, if you don't count Vandy, I think Mississippi State. I think it's Mississippi State. I think the top 2 candidates, I think Mississippi State. Yeah, I think it's Mississippi State. It could be South Carolina. I mean, I think it's either South Carolina or Mississippi State. I think that Kentucky probably makes it before those two. How about this? Clemson wide receiver Antonio Williams is entering the transfer portal or is expected to enter the transfer portal. How about that? And how many Gamecock fans would take Antonio Williams back in Columbia despite what happened on his way out? Interesting. I think Mississippi State, though, is the last one for me, John. Delta says, Ole Miss has enough to replace losing Quinshon Judkins. I think they do, Delta. I make no mistake, it's a big loss. I'm not sitting here telling you it's not. But, I had this conversation with our good friend SEC Mike, that SEC podcast. I think losing like a Jackson Dart would have been a lot bigger deal. I think running back is much more a position where you can plug and play. And I talked about this, guys, like a week ago. I mean, if you've recruited worth a damn at running back, you've probably got a running back on your roster that can fill in. And I think Lane Kiffin and company, I think the way that they have recruited, I think they'll be just fine. Like, I think Lane Kiffin's going to have them set, ready to go on the offensive side. I think they'll be fine at running back. So it's a big loss. Don't get me wrong. And it's a storyline. It's a big storyline going into the 2024 season for Ole Miss, but I don't think it derails any sort of, expectations or hype. I don't think it derails any sort of expectations or hype, in regards to what Ole Miss can do in 2024. So I think they'll be fine. I think they have enough, Delta. Yes, I think they have enough. Ruben Nation says, Antonio Williams stays hurt and soft. No. I love that. Octavian says the Gators are going to whomp the balls in Neyland. Siebers says you're crazy. This offense is going to go back to the way it was in 22. Gators will not be able to keep up. Joe ain't running the show no more. Yeah, I mean, way too early, guys. I'd side with Tennessee to beat Florida. I understand that Florida just won that game in the Swamp, but that game in the Swamp and that game in Neyland, two different beasts. Even Florida fans have to admit that. Here we go, John Rice. Was the Antonio Williams tweet, was it fake? Yep, because it got deleted. Wow. Fake news. Be careful in these streets, man. Be careful in these streets. You can get got quickly. Very, very quickly. Sometimes you just can't trust the Discord, folks. Sometimes you cannot trust the Discord. Guys, I want to say thank you so much. Thank you so much to those who continue to tune in the show, guys. Listen, I want to say this. When we make changes, whatever they may be, number one, I always make changes that I feel are best going to benefit the audience and that are going to drive value for the audience. But I'm just going to say this. When you make changes, you know what the beautiful thing about making changes is, guys? You know what the beautiful thing about change is, especially in this aspect, when you change an entity or you change up content, right? You take away a Q&A power hour. You no longer allow calls to be live on air. You change your entity entirely. You know what the beautiful thing about that is, and change like that? You find out who was really with you for you and who was supportive because they appreciate you versus people who were supportive because you fit into a certain box they put you in. Because you fit into a box they put you in. That's a great way to phrase it. Or because you satisfied some personal desire they had, right? You find out who's really with you for you, and you find out who was just kind of hanging around because of something else, right? It's kind of the all we got is all we need mentality, right? There's some people that used to tune in the live show daily that no longer do, and that's okay, guys. We trim the fat. Those who used to be with us who no longer are, they weren't meant to be with us in this chapter of the journey. So I just want to say thank you to those who continue to be with us in this chapter of the journey, and I appreciate each and every single one of you. Again, I think it's very obvious there were some people that were in the Discord or in the chat, if you will, or in the comments or calling in that were doing it for selfish desires. not because they supported the show, supported the entity, wanted to see it do well. Do you notice we take voicemails, right? None of the people who used to call in leave voicemails. None of them. None of them. Wonder why that is. I wonder why that is. It's almost like there are some people that just wanted to hear the echo of their own voice. And if you take that personally, that's a you problem. If you take that personally, that's on you. So it's just interesting, isn't it? It's interesting. It's interesting. So I only bring that up because I saw Brewer Nation talking about it earlier, and I got a screenshot from somebody that, people go into other shows announcing that they've left SEC Unfiltered. They no longer tune into the show. That's fine. That's fine. You're better off without us. We're better off without you. That is what it is. I appreciate it. I am so happy to trim the fat and make way for new audience. I'm happy for that. So appreciate it. Thank you for doing me the favor. Thank you. Truly, genuinely. Thank you. Thank you. Again, guys, 843-790-3377. You can call that number. You can text the number. We'll go through until 2 o'clock, guys, with no break. I'll tell you this, guys, admittedly, I'm already fired up for baseball season. I mean, I'm enjoying college basketball, but I'm a huge baseball guy, as you guys know, and I'm so excited to rock as SEC Unfiltered. I'm so excited to rock as SEC Unfiltered throughout baseball season. I'm so pumped. Delta 900, Chris, you have a Discord. How do I access that? Click the link in our bio on social media, Delta 900, and you will see the Discord link there. So any of our social media channels, you'll see that link tree link. If you click that, you will see a link to the Discord. Again, it is free. It is free access for all. It is free access for all. Highly encourage you join. It's a really good time. Justin Martin says, Chris, college football needs a commissioner. It does. I mean, it's insane that there's no leadership. It's crazy. There's no leadership. There's no anybody kind of pointing this thing in the right direction. It's crazy, Justin. I mean, it's absolutely crazy. Who should we employ? Who should we hire for college football commissioner? Who should be the commissioner of college football? I know many would point at Josh Pate. Let's see. Travi says, it's interesting. What is it? I'm assuming you're just kind of talking about what I was talking about, Travi, that's interesting. Cody Larmer says, join the Discord. It's a lot of fun. Yeah, I would love some more SEC representation in that Discord. Would love that. Guys, really exciting stuff, too, happening on the business side of things. We are continuing to boost our team of content creators. I think we got 3 or 4 more right now we're adding. We are going to have a new daily live show, believe it or not, that we're going to add to the rotation. Again, guys, we're really building this thing out. I mean, the plan is, the goal is, the expectation is we're going to have a network of 5 to 6 shows. They're not necessarily going to be team shows. They're going to be, SEC-centric shows. Maybe one's focused on gambling. Maybe one's focused on baseball. One's focused on basketball. One's focused on football. One's just kind of all over the place, right? But we're going to have these different shows that are going to be part of our network. You've already seen our good friend Dave Shoemate with Mach 10 Sports go live. That's going to continue, I think, every Tuesday night. I got to figure that out with Dave. And then again, guys, we're working on right now adding a daily live show. So things are in the works, guys. I'm really, really excited for what we're doing, what we're building. SEC Unfiltered is far beyond just Chris Phillips. That is for sure. It's far beyond me. And again, that is all by design. That is all, that is all meant to be. That's how we plan this thing out. I got a text from somebody asking me if I'm calling anybody out when it comes to callers. I'm just making a point. I'm just simply making a point that I find it really interesting that when we had a wide open hour, right? When we had a wide open hour, allowed calls, free for all in the calls, we had people that called in every single day. They didn't mind taking up 15 or 20 minutes of time at a time. They didn't mind doing it. But when we restructure things, when we make changes, we say, hey, you can still call in. It's just going to be a 3-minute voicemail. You can call in. Not a peep. Crickets. Why is that? You tell me. I'm just telling you what's happened. I'm not calling anybody out. if the shoe fits. But you notice those they don't leave voicemails anymore, man. Why? Or they don't call anymore. Why? Again, there's some people that are with you for you. And there's some people that are with you because they truly, genuinely support you. And there's some people that are with you because you satisfy their selfish desires, right? There's some people that like Chris Phillips because he was a Gamecock guy. And that's the only reason they like Chris Phillips. They don't actually like me for me. That's why you don't ever make business decisions. With all due respect, guys, I love you to death, but you don't make business decisions. You got to go with your gut. You really got to trust your gut and trust your decision-making. I got into this really bad habit of asking the audience all the time, well, what do you guys want? What do you want to do? And that's great to get feedback. But at some point, you got to make decisions best for you. Because you know what? Some of them people, they only like you because you're satisfying their personal desires and what they want out of a show, right? And we've seen that because the second that you make a decision best for you, do they actually support you? You know, what we've been able to tell here early on, and I love it. I love it, guys. Because as I told you before, I was more than happy to take maybe a step or two back in the short term to take an unlimited amount of steps forward in the long term. And guys, here's a news flash for you. We've only grown. We have only grown across the board. Downloads are up on the podcast. YouTube is up exponentially. Social media is up. We're up across the board. But again, you see some folks no longer around that were, and it is what it is. But it just goes to show there's some people that are with you, and they're with you no matter what. It's real, true, genuine support. And then there's people that conditionally support you and show love. And that's okay, but that's the reality. Let's call it for what it is. Let's call it for what it is. All are fine. All are welcome, but let's just keep it a buck and call it for what it is. Let's keep it real, right? Let's keep it real. So, hey, no matter who you are, it's all love. It's all good, but let's just keep it a buck. Let's keep it real. So, you want to go and do another show and brag about not watching a certain show anymore, like that's some sort of flex? Well, I can keep it real and keep it a buck then. You know what I mean? I can keep it real and keep it a buck. So I've always done it since the jump, and it's worked out pretty well to this point. So, and I really, truly, genuinely appreciate the new folks on board, man. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. And I promise you, those that are tuned in that are new, they're like, what is this about? This won't be a large part of what we do. One of the reasons there's many, many reasons. What you notice, though, and I see Bruin Nation commenting, there's a lot of folks that are commenting and watching right now that have been around since the jump. And, you know, what I'm so excited, because when you zoom out and you cover the entire league like we're doing now versus one team, you really detach yourself from a lot of that petty nonsense, a lot of that in fan base drama that just does nothing, that does no good for anybody. You detach from that because it's like, I'm not in the weeds like that with you. Like, I don't want to be in the weeds like that with you. You know what I mean? I'm so excited to be removed from that. Like, I really am, man. Like, I want to have a relationship with my audience, and we do, right? It's why I told my live audience first about what was happening from the business perspective. But like, removing from that on social media, and I did that a long time ago, but like, it's so nice. It's just so nice because it's so stupid. It's so dumb. Anyways, I'm going off on an unnecessary rant, unnecessary tangent. For again, those tuned in, this is something that from time to time I might do. Sometimes the daily mailbag gets random, especially if y'all aren't asking questions. Travie with a really good question here. Will there be a breakdown on all the SEC baseball teams? Will there be a preview show? Yeah, Travie, this is a great question. So the plan is me trying to break down all right now. We're going to stick with 14. We're not going to include Texas and Oklahoma in this yet. Maybe, you know what? Maybe we will do bonus shows of them. Either way, let's just say 16. For me to break down all 16 teams, there are people that cover these shows, Travie, that are going to know the ins and outs of their ball clubs much better than I, right? Much better than I. So the plan is we're going to have a lot of people that cover these teams. We're going to have them on the show to preview the season, to break down their rosters, to break down projections. I'm planning on getting our guys back over from D1 Baseball, Aaron Fitt, Kyle Peterson, getting those guys back on. And then I will do my own preview stuff, Travis. I don't know that I'm going to go team by team, just kind of like spend an entire show breaking down one team. We could do that. At minimum, though, Travis, we're going to have tons of preview stuff, previewing the entire league. I'm gonna do I'm gonna do an Omaha 8, right? A prediction. We'll do predictions for the SEC, but at worst, Travis, we're gonna have people from all these different teams giving you full breakdowns on roster and everything you need to know. Because again, it's admittedly just a lot for one guy to keep up with, right? So I'd rather go out there and get a Mississippi State guy who knows their roster in and out, knows their pitching staff. He can give us a full breakdown of what state's going to be this year. And then I can view the thing from a 30,000-foot view and give my predictions and give my breakdowns. And, not to say I don't know the rosters, but I don't know the rosters like those guys do, like if you're covering the team. So anyways, stick around, Travis. I'm expecting college baseball content to begin for us no later than February the 1st. No later. So at the latest, February the 1st is when we'll start talking baseball. Because, obviously, again, there's a lot to get in, a lot to preview right before opening day. But cannot wait for that. Cannot wait. Brewer Nation says, I'll ride with you. You've always been real with me, and I appreciate it. Brewer Nation, I appreciate it, man. You're the man. Thank you so much. Guys, thank you all so much for tuning in. Hey, be sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Hit that bell icon so you get notifications of when you tune in. Or, excuse me, I'm sitting here reading a comment while I'm doing this. Hit the bell icon so you get notifications when we go live, when we drop new video content as well. Also, guys, the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. And, guys, content bleeding out of the eyeballs on social media all across the board. Y'all be sure to check us out there. Cody Larmer, I appreciate you, man. I was reading your comment as I was doing that, so kind of threw me off. But, again, thank you for the love, man. I appreciate it. All we got is all we need. We're going to keep it moving. We're going to keep growing. Nothing can stop this and what's going on with SECU. Guys, appreciate you all tuning in. Thank you all so much. Have a great rest of your Wednesday, and we will talk to you all tomorrow.